F5.
Hit.
Yay.
B5.
Miss.
Ella, Samir, Sir Chattels, what are we doing?
We're playing some Battleship.
Playing some Battleship, yeah.
But it's like the end of the school year. You got finals coming up. Why are you wasting your time playing Battleship?
Well, I graduated.
Oh. What's your excuse?
I don't need any practice. I always ace your exams.
Really?
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 Mm-hmm.
So you're going to play Battleship instead of studying?
Yep.
Well, I've got a final for you. A final you'll never forget. Hi, I'm Nate Macon, and I'm the physics teacher here at Skyview High School. Now, you just saw that I had a conversation with my students, and I kind of feel they're not really taking my final exam as seriously as they should be. But it's finals time, and I have to give them a final. But that doesn't mean I have to give them a paper and pencil classic final. It could be something else. And since they like Battleship so much, I think I'm going to make them use physics to play a giant game of Battleship.
The Revolutionary War, World War II, American Idol, all of it, preamble to this, the Battleship Showdown at Skyview High School.
I'm Nate Macon, and this is Battleship.
I'm Tank McGarity.
And I'm Phil Turnerhooch. Tank?
Yes, Phil.
Did you say Battleship?
You got it, buddy. The game Stormin' Norman Schwarzkopf once called the only true test of character.
Tank, and I wish I hadn't spent the last 2 months studying Hungry Hungry Hippos instead.
Well, so I guess I'll explain how the game is played. The Battleship grid is made up of hallway tiles at Skyview. In the middle, tables. There are 2 teams, each with 2 devices. They select a target on the other side of the grid, do the calculations, and then use their device to shoot a golf ball over the tables. Hits bombs away on those boats.
For the winners, Tank, A+ in eternal glory. For the losers, expulsion from school and possibly misdemeanor charges.
So that second part is not true, folks. These kids are all winners, and this competition is for all the marbles.
I thought you said this wasn't Hungry Hungry Hippos. Will you please make up your mind?
Phil, it looks like they're just about ready to get started.
It must have cost an arm and a leg to buy those launchers.
Also not true. They built those themselves, and each one has a different design. Nate Macon is with the kids now. Nate?
Our first launcher was built by Ryan and is based on a Greek ballista. It's a lot like a bow and arrow and has a heavy-duty history.
And they even use these to sink ships. So we're playing Battleship. Why not make a ballista?
While Ryan took inspiration from the Greeks, Ella looked to plumbers for ideas. She built her device out of a caulking gun and used the spring inside as the energy source to launch the golf ball.
And then when you release the trigger, it hits the golf ball like that.
Samir doubled down on the springs. He cranks back a piston and locks it into place. So the golf ball goes all the way down on top of the piston?
Yeah, it just goes all the way down on top of the piston. Then you can release it, and all this tension here will be transferred to a force in the golf ball.
Quinn gets medieval on the ball using a catapult he built from wood.
And right here down here, we have these bungees that just build up an enormous amount of force. And then we have this rod back here to kind of tell us, gauge how far we need to pull back.
4 students, 4 designs, 4 ways to smash some boats. And it looks like they're ready to get going. First up, Ryan. Oh, and he nails it off the bounce. Great start.
You know, my Uncle Sal had a pillow like that, Tank. He did not enjoy sitting.
Here's Quinn. And welcome to Davy Jones's locker. That's a hit. And now here's Ella.
Hit.
Bang. Direct hit.
I haven't seen this kind of carnage since my summer job at the driving range, Tank.
Samir looks ready to go. That's another hit. 4 in a row.
How are they doing this?
Phil, it's a little thing called math. Combine that with solid engineering and some trial and error, you've got a recipe for some sunken battleships.
That sounds like a lot of dead sailors, Tank. Let's take a moment of silence out of respect.
Halftime, and the score is 5-2 red team. An exciting first half, and as those teams regroup, let's learn more about how they're hitting all of those targets. Nate Macon, take it away. Phil, what are you doing? I thought you were ready for this. I vouched for you with my boss.
It seems simple, but the students' devices have to shoot golf balls 30 feet over a divider onto a small area. To calculate how to hit the target, they have to take a bunch of factors into consideration. First, how tall is their device? Second, at what angle will the device release the ball? Third, how fast will their device launch the ball? To answer those questions and make their plan, they use 4 formulas. The first formula deals with an initial velocity, how fast the ball shoots up. Second, initial horizontal velocity, how fast is the ball just moving sideways? Next, how long, in terms of time, does it take to get from the device to the target? And finally, you need a formula for where the ball needs to land. Students do a bunch of testing, like what you see Ella doing here, to get data. They're trying to figure out, well, how high does the golf ball go? And the reason they're doing this is because if they want to ever learn or figure out or calculate how far the golf ball is going to go at any angle, well, they need to know how fast the golf ball is moving. And so by shooting it straight up and measuring the maximum height over and over and over again so that they get consistent, they can do some calculations to determine the initial velocity of the golf ball. They plug that data into their formulas and bam, it's boat blasting time.
Thanks, Nate. Boat blasting time indeed. Now, here's today's famous scientist.
Today's famous scientist is out of this world. At least she was in 1963. Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman in space. The Soviet pioneer didn't have your typical scientific background. While most astronauts and cosmonauts now are trained scientists and mathematicians, Valentina was selected for space because A, she was short and skinny, B, she was an experienced skydiver, and C, she had a lot of guts. One day, Valentina worked in a textiles factory. The next, she was a cosmonaut. After months of training, Valentina launched on the spacecraft Vostok 6. She spent the next 3 days circling the Earth, suffering from nausea in cramped quarters, but it did not stop her from doing her job. She took a series of photographs of the horizon, which later were used to identify aerosol layers within the atmosphere. After her return, she became a national hero in what was called the Soviet Union, even if Americans didn't know much about her. Valentina appeared on a stamp and won the Hero of the Soviet Union Award, the nation's highest honor. Now, in her personal life, she married the Soviet Union's only bachelor cosmonaut. Their daughter became the first person in the world whose parents both went into space. In 2013, she offered to go on a, get this, one-way mission to Mars, continuing to show that no matter where you come from, you can still set your sights on the stars.
As the game is starting back up, Phil, any advice for the second half?
My advice, keep your eyes on those golf balls, because the minute you look away, that's when you take one off the neck.
Truer words were never mumbled.
Ooh, just short. Just short. Hit.
And that's a hit. This game is really moving quickly now.
That's true, Tank. You know what else moves fast? Hungry, hungry hippos. Those hippos are never satisfied.
Phil, we're talking about Battleship here.
Tank, I guess I just like hungry, hungry hippos. I suppose it stems from when I was a kid, when my dad and I would
And
go...
that's the game. Let's go down to the floor with Nate.
Score of 9-4, red team wins. Please shake hands. Yeah.
You heard it. Red team is the winner. We're going to hear from both teams at the post-game press conference in just a moment. Phil, I'm going to regret this, but do you have any final thoughts on today's match?
I miss my dad so much. I wish he were still here. But he moved to Florida to live with his new girlfriend. She's not my mom.
Mine either, Phil. Mine either. For Phil Turner Hooch, I'm Tank McGarity. Until next time, keep those brains a-thinking and those ships a-sinking.
Time now for the old science mailbag. Our first question comes from Jessica. She writes, Mr. Macon, I saw you were nominated for another Emmy this year. Is that why you're a teacher? For all those awards? Jessica, thanks for the question. Although we've been nominated for 6 Emmys in the last 4 years, and we won one of them, that's not why I do it. I'm a teacher because schools are the only place you can regularly, without fail, get chocolate milk with lunch. Our next question comes from Todd. He wants to know, Mr. Macon, in the last episode you imploded a giant oil barrel. Did you get that 5-cent deposit you were after? Todd, short answer, no. Long answer, no. No, we didn't. Not even close. If you have a question for us, shoot me an email to scienceshow@vansd.org. If your question isn't terrible, we might read it on the air. So here's the point. The point here isn't to do a whole bunch of fancy calculations. The point is to understand that those calculations can get you something, but only something that you're looking for. We have a couple of different devices here, and the beautiful part of this whole project to me is that all of the devices are correct answers. All of them. Every last one of them that gets built is a correct answer, and they're all different. And I find it very, very valuable to work with your hands. I feel like we underserve many students who would be good at working with their hands. And this project is kind of a testament, a proof to the fact that final exams can be more than questions on paper. The amount students have to work and think and plan in order to construct devices like these two is quite the brain workout. And if I can provide that workout even a little bit, it's totally worth it. And that's the point. In the end, there can only be one winner. But all of these students are going to get great grades. They all worked really, really hard. As always, I'm Nate Macon, and this is Science. Catch you next time.
So guys, how does it feel to win the big Battleship Showdown?
It feels amazing.
Yeah, a lot of hard work went into
A
it.
lot of dedication hours put into it, and we came out on top.
Yeah, we came out on top. Nothing else can be said. And you know, Newton's laws just seem to be working for us today.
Practice, come on. Practice.
Alright, so Ella, it looked like you're having some issues with accuracy out there on the field. What happened? We've seen much better days for that device, haven't we?
Yes, we have. I recently, this weekend, I had to change the springs, so the initial velocity wasn't constant. So normally I have 8 cranks back is what usually I did with the previous springs, but this time I was kind of like just trying to find the right balance. So the amount of cranks back to get a different initial velocity was different, and then changing the angles. So it's just basically you have to have a lot of practice in order to have a consistent device, which I didn't have enough practice beforehand.
Both teams played hard, my man. Both teams played hard.